The apartment air felt thick enough to choke on. Nicole's hands trembled at her sides, fingers curling into fists so tight her nails bit crescents into her palms. The pain was nothing compared to the agony splitting her chest wide open as she watched Tae-Won's face crumble before her eyes. "Who is he to you?" His voice cracked on the last word, raw and jagged like broken glass. "Nicole, I'm asking you a question. Who the hell is he to you?" The living room suddenly felt too small. The walls pressed in from all sides. Her throat closed up, words dying before they could form. She could feel Tae-Kyung's presence behind her like a living thing, his silence heavy and suffocating. "Tae-Won, please," she started, but her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Don't." He held up a hand, and she watched it shake. His brown eyes, usually so warm and filled with adoration when they looked at her, now burned with something she'd never seen before. Betrayal. Pure, unfiltered betrayal. "Don't you dare please me right now. I've been watching you, Nicole. For weeks. Weeks." He laughed then, a bitter sound that made her flinch. His hand ran through his brown hair, gripping it like he wanted to tear it out. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, you know? But I wasn't, was I?" A tear slipped down Nicole's cheek. She couldn't stop it. Every time he walks into a room, your whole body goes rigid. Tae-Won's voice rose with each word, his athletic frame coiled tight with tension. "You can't even look at me anymore when he's around. You pull away when I try to hold you. Your mind is somewhere else. Someone else. And I'm standing right there like a fool wondering what I did wrong. Tae-Won, it's not. And your phone." He cut her off, his finger jabbing toward the device on the coffee table between them. "You're always checking it. Always. Like you're waiting for something. Or someone. Tell me I'm wrong. Look me in the eye and tell me I'm wrong." She couldn't. God help her, she couldn't. "Cousin." Tae-Kyung finally spoke, his deep voice careful and measured. "Let's just calm down and zip it." Tae-Won whipped around to face him, and Nicole saw the rage blazing in his eyes now. "Zip. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my fiancé, the woman I was going to marry, the woman I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So unless she tells me you mean nothing, you don't get to speak." The silence that followed was deafening. Tae-Won turned back to Nicole, and the hope flickering in his eyes shattered her. "Tell me," he whispered, and his voice broke completely. "Tell me he means nothing. Tell me this is all in my head. Please, Nicole. Please." Her lips parted. The lie sat right there on her tongue, ready to save everything. But when she looked at Tae-Won's face, at the love and pain warring in his expression, the lie withered and died. Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I can't," she whispered. She watched him break. His shoulders sagged like someone had cut his strings. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. He stumbled backward, one hand reaching for the wall to steady himself. "How long?" The question came out strangled. "How long have you known him?" Nicole's vision blurred with tears. Her heart hammered so hard against her ribs she thought it might crack right through. "Years ago. Before I met you. Before any of this. Before me." Tae-Won repeated the words like he was testing how they felt in his mouth. Like he was tasting poison. "You knew him before me. I didn't know he was your cousin. I swear I didn't know." "But you knew him." His shout made her jump. "You knew him and you didn't tell me. You looked me in the eye every single day and you didn't tell me. I thought it was over." Nicole's voice cracked as she cried harder. "I thought it was in the past. I thought I'd moved on. I thought." "Thought what?" Tae-Won demanded, tears now running down his own face. "Thought you could just pretend? Thought it didn't matter? Thought I wouldn't notice the way you freeze up when he's near? The way you can't breathe properly when he's in the same room?" Every word was a dagger to her chest. "I loved you," he whispered, and the past tense destroyed her. "I gave you everything. Everything I had. I was ready to build a life with you. And you've been carrying him in your heart this whole time. Tae-Won, get out." His voice went flat. "Empty. Both of you. Get out of my home. Please let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Nicole. He wouldn't look at her anymore. His gaze fixed somewhere over her shoulder, distant and hollow. You just did. Now get out before I say something I can't take back. The engagement ring on her finger suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Nicole stood there, rooted to the spot, watching the man who'd shown her nothing but kindness and love turn into a stranger. Watching 3 years of happiness disintegrate like ash in the wind. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't how any of this was supposed to be. But to understand how we got here, to understand how 3 hearts ended up shattered on a living room floor in Seoul, we need to go back. Back to where it all started. Back to when love was young and the future felt infinite. Back to 7 years ago, when Nicole Reynolds first laid eyes on Tae-Kyung and her world tilted on its axis. 7 years earlier, the campus library smelled like old books and new beginnings. Nicole adjusted the strap of her backpack, her dark skin glowing under the fluorescent lights as she navigated between towering shelves. Her natural hair was pulled back in a puff, a few coils escaping to frame her face. She was hunting for a specific book on international business law, mumbling the call number under her breath like a prayer. Excuse me. The voice came from behind her, deep and accented and polite. She turned, and there he was. Tae-Kyung stood there with a book in his hand, his black hair perfectly disheveled in that way that looked effortless but probably wasn't. Even in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, he looked like he'd walked out of a magazine. Sharp cheekbones caught the light. His jawline could cut glass. But it was his eyes that held her, dark and intense and focused entirely on her. I think you dropped this, he said, holding out a pen. Nicole blinked, looked down at the pen, then back up at him. Oh, thank you. She reached for it, and their fingers brushed. The contact lasted maybe half a second, but she felt it everywhere. You're in Professor Kim's international business class, right? He asked, not moving away. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. I've seen you there. Front row, always taking notes. Heat crept up her neck. You noticed. Hard not to. His smile widened. You're the only one who actually looks interested in what he's saying. She laughed, the sound surprised out of her. Someone has to be. Are you in that class too? Back row, trying not to fall asleep. He extended his hand. I'm Tae-Kyung. Nicole. She shook his hand, and this time the contact lingered. His palm was warm, his grip firm but gentle. Nicole, he repeated, like he was memorizing the shape of her name. That's pretty. It's just a name. No. He shook his head, still holding her hand, still looking at her like she was something rare and precious. It fits you perfectly. Her heart did something stupid in her chest. Skipped, stuttered, forgot its rhythm entirely. That was the beginning. 3 days later, they were sitting in a small cafe off campus, sharing a slice of strawberry cake neither of them was really eating. Rain drummed against the windows. The world outside blurred into watercolor streaks, but inside, everything felt sharp and vivid and real. So why Korea? Tae-Kyung asked, his chin propped on his hand as he watched her. He always watched her like that, like she was the most fascinating thing in the room. Nicole stirred her coffee, watching the cream swirl into brown spirals. My dad. He's a businessman back in the States. He always talked about expanding internationally, building connections in East Asia. I guess I wanted to understand that world. Make him proud. I'm sure he's already proud. I hope so. She smiled softly. What about you? What's your story? Tae-Kyung leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming against his cup. Family expectations, tradition, all that fun stuff. My parents wanted me to study business, learn to run companies, make connections. So here I am. Do you like it? He paused, really thinking about it. I like this, he said finally, gesturing between them. This feels real. Everything else feels like playing a part. Her breath caught. Can I be honest with you? He asked quietly. Please. I've been trying to work up the courage to talk to you for 2 months. His admission came out rough, vulnerable. Every time I saw you in class, I told myself today's the day. and then I'd chicken out. 2 months. Nicole's eyes widened. Why? Because you're beautiful and smart and you have this energy that just... He shook his head, searching for words. You light up every space you're in. And I'm just some guy trying not to mess this up. You're not just some guy. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. His eyes met hers, and something ignited in the space between them. Something inevitable. Can I take you to dinner? He asked. A real one. Not coffee and shared cake. Yes. No hesitation. Just yes. That dinner turned into 2. Then 5. Then they stopped counting. They fell into each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like their souls had been searching and finally found home. Nicole discovered that Tae-Kyung hated mornings but loved making her breakfast anyway. His eyes still heavy with sleep as he hummed and cracked eggs into a pan. That he had a tattoo down his neck she traced with her fingers while they talked about everything and nothing. That when he laughed, really laughed, it was the best sound she'd ever heard. Tae-Kyung learned that Nicole was stronger than she looked, that she'd worked 2 jobs to help pay for college, that her relationship with her father was complicated but full of love, that she sang in the shower, that she cried during sad movies and pretended she didn't, that when she smiled at him, his entire world narrowed down to just her. For months in, they were tangled together on his apartment couch, her head on his chest, his fingers playing with her coils. Tell me something you've never told anyone, she whispered into the darkness. His chest rose and fell beneath her cheek. I'm terrified of losing you. She lifted her head to look at him. His face was serious, vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. Why would you lose me? Because good things don't stay. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Not in my experience. But you, Nicole, you feel different. You feel like forever. Her heart swelled so big she thought it might burst. Then let's be forever. You mean that? I mean that. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. I'm going to marry you someday, he breathed. I'm going to make you so happy. You already do. They talked about it constantly after that. Their future, where they'd live, how many kids they wanted, what they'd name their dog. It felt real and solid and certain. On their 1-year anniversary, Tae-Kyung took her to the Han River at sunset. The sky burned orange and pink and gold, painting everything in warm light. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his pocket. Nicole's breath hitched. Tae-Kyung. It's not a ring. Not yet. He pulled out a delicate silver bracelet, a small infinity symbol dangling from it. But it's a promise. You and me. Forever. No matter what comes. Tears pricked her eyes as he fastened it around her wrist. No matter what comes, she repeated. He pulled her close, wrapped her in his arms, and she'd never felt safer, never felt more certain of anything. Nothing's going to tear us apart, he murmured into her hair. I won't let it. She believed him. God, she believed him with everything she had. They had no idea what was coming. Soul lovers, if you're here with me right now, tell me where you're watching from and what you're doing while watching. And if you're new here and you're loving this story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss when I drop mind-blowing stories. Now back to the story because we are just getting started. The phone call came on a Tuesday. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind that never announces itself as the day everything will end. Nicole was sitting cross-legged on her dorm room floor, her back against the narrow bed, contract law spread out in front of her like a battlefield. Yellow highlighter hovered above the page, frozen mid-sentence. Outside, the muted sounds of campus life drifted through the open window. Laughter, footsteps, the distant whine of traffic. Life moving forward, unaware. Her phone buzzed beside her knee. Mom. Nicole frowned. It wasn't unusual for her mother to call, but not at this hour. Not on a weekday afternoon when she knew Nicole would be studying. Her first instinct was to ignore it. Let it go to voicemail. Call back later when she finished this chapter, when her brain wasn't already stretched thin. She watched the screen vibrate again. Something twisted low in her stomach. She picked it up. Mom! For a split second, there was only breathing. Ragged. Broken. Like the person on the other end was drowning. Then the sobbing came. Not quiet crying. Not sniffles. This was raw, animal grief. Deep, gasping sounds that tore through the phone and straight into Nicole's chest. Her blood went cold. Mom, what's wrong? She sat up, heart slamming against her ribs. Mom, what happened? The sobs hitched, struggled for air. Your father, her mother finally choked out. Nicole's vision narrowed. What about Dad? Her voice sounded calm, detached. Too calm. Baby! Her mother's voice cracked completely. Your father. He's gone. The word didn't make sense. Gone where? The highlighter slipped from Nicole's fingers. The textbook slid from her lap and hit the floor with a heavy thud that echoed too loudly in the small room. Like a gunshot. What do you mean gone? She whispered. There was shuffling on the other end. Muffled voices. The distant beep of hospital machinery. Heart attack, her mother said. The doctors said it was instant. He didn't suffer. They said he didn't feel pain. But he's gone, Nicole. He's gone. And I don't know what to do. The room tilted. The walls felt too far away, like they were bending outward. Nicole pressed her free hand to her chest, but her heart felt like it was racing without her permission. No, she said. No, that doesn't, he was fine. I talked to him last week. He said. Her mother broke down again, words dissolving into sobs. Nicole swallowed hard, forcing air into her lungs. I'm coming home, she said quickly, desperately. Mom, I'm coming home right now. I need you, her mother whispered. I'll be there. I promise. There was a pause. A fragile, terrifying pause. There's more, her mother said. Nicole closed her eyes. The business, her mother continued, voice dropping to something small and terrified. That investment your father made last year. It was a scam, Nicole. They took everything. The savings, the retirement, everything. The accounts are empty. The house is mortgaged. I don't even know how we're going to pay for the funeral. Nicole couldn't breathe. The words piled on top of each other, crushing her. Her father was dead. The man who taught her how to ride a bike, who called her every Sunday, who bragged about her to strangers. Gone. And everything they built? Gone too. I need to book a flight, she heard herself say. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I'll be there as soon as I can. I'm so sorry, baby, her mother sobbed. I'm so sorry. The call ended. Nicole stared at her phone long after the screen went dark. The next 6 hours disappeared. Time fractured into meaningless pieces. Open suitcase, shaking hands, clothes tossed in without folding. Her passport, her charger. She left behind half her textbooks, her notes, her carefully planned future scattered across the dorm room floor. She booked the first flight she could find with money she didn't have, ignoring the warning on her bank app. The numbers didn't matter anymore. Nothing did. Her mind raced and stalled at the same time, caught between panic and numbness. Her father is dead. We're bankrupt. Mom is alone. And then, Tae-Kyung. The thought hit her like a blow to the chest. She grabbed her phone and opened their messages. The last one from him was from that morning. Good luck studying today, love. Dinner on me tonight. I'll come over later. Her vision blurred instantly. She started typing. Dad died. I'm going home. Her fingers shook so badly the words came out wrong. She deleted it. Tried again. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you earlier. Something happened. Delete. Tears splashed onto the screen. She couldn't explain this in a text. She couldn't break their world with autocorrect and typos. I'll call him at the airport, she decided. I'll explain everything. He'll understand. He always understands. But when she got there, everything unraveled. Security lines. Boarding announcements. Her phone battery flashing red. Her chest tight with panic. People everywhere moving too fast, asking questions she couldn't process. She stood at the gate as boarding began, her hands shaking, her throat raw from holding back sobs. I'll call him when I land. That promise was the only thing holding her together. She didn't know it would be too late. The funeral passed like a dream she couldn't wake from. Nicole stood beside her mother under a sky that felt offensively blue, her black dress hanging loose on her frame. Her father's casket rested between them, polished wood gleaming in the sunlight. People she barely recognized approached in an endless line. Co-workers, distant relatives, old friends of her parents. I'm so sorry for your loss. He was a good man. He spoke about you all the time. The words washed over her without meaning. Her mother clung to her arm, fingers digging in like she might disappear if she let go. So Nicole stood tall. She nodded. She thanked people. She held her mother upright when her knees buckled. She didn't cry. Not yet. When they lowered the casket into the ground, something inside her cracked anyway. Not tears, just a hollowing. Like someone had scooped out her insides and left nothing but echoes. After the funeral came the paperwork. The lawyers' offices were cold and smelled like old coffee. The debt collector's calls were relentless, voices sharp and impatient, as if grief were an inconvenience. Nicole sat across from a man in a gray suit who spoke without emotion. You'll need to withdraw from school, he said, tapping a pen against a folder. Use whatever funds you can reclaim to pay down the debt. Find work. Your mother can't handle this alone. Withdraw. The word hit harder than anything else. What about loans? Nicole asked quietly. Scholarships? There has to be. He shook his head. Not enough. I'm sorry. She left the office feeling like she'd been erased. No more college. No more Korea. No more late nights studying with Tae-Kyung, dreaming out loud about international business and the future they'd build together. No more forever. That night, she locked herself in her childhood bedroom and tried to call him. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. She left messages through sobs she could no longer contain. Tae-Kyung, please call me. Something happened. I need you. Nothing. She texted. The messages stayed undelivered. She emailed. No response. She reached out to mutual friends, to professors, to anyone who might know something. Finally, she called the registrar's office. I'm sorry, the woman said gently. Tae-Kyung Kim withdrew 2 weeks ago. He didn't leave a forwarding address. 2 weeks ago, right after Nicole left. He was gone. On the other side of the world, Tae-Kyung was unraveling. He came home that Tuesday evening with flowers in hand and a paper bag of her favorite takeout. He'd planned to surprise her, help her study, make her laugh, steal kisses between chapters. Her apartment door was locked. Inside it was empty. Her shoes were gone. Her coat, her toothbrush, her scent. No note, no message. His heart dropped into his stomach. He called her phone. It rang and rang. Voicemail. Again. Straight to voicemail. Panic gave way to confusion. Confusion hardened into fear. He went to her classes the next day. She wasn't there. He asked her friends. No one knew anything. She didn't say anything, they told him. She just stopped showing up. Days passed. Then weeks. Silence screamed louder than any argument ever could. Maybe she got cold feet, one of his friends said carelessly. Maybe it got too serious. The words dug in deep, poisonous and sharp. No, she wouldn't do that. But the absence stretched on, unanswered and cruel. When the administration confirmed she'd withdrawn, something inside him shattered. After everything, after forever, he stopped caring. About classes, about friends, about anything that reminded him of her. When his family called him back to Seoul, he didn't argue. He packed his life into boxes, took one last look at the couch where she'd promised him forever, and left. Back in the States, Nicole learned how to survive. 3 jobs, endless exhaustion, grief pressed down into something dull and constant. She worked, she paid bills, she kept her mother afloat. Years passed, she survived, and some nights, alone in the quiet, she touched the silver infinity bracelet still on her wrist and wondered how forever could vanish so completely. She told herself she was over it, until the day she met Tae-Won. 5 years after the world fell apart, Nicole Reynolds stood in the center of a luxury hotel ballroom in Seoul, clipboard tucked against her arm, calmly orchestrating chaos into something breathtaking. Around her, dozens of people moved at once. Florists adjusting arrangements, technicians testing lights, servers weaving between tables with trays of glassware. The room buzzed with overlapping conversations in Korean, English, and Mandarin, all of it threatening to blur into noise if not carefully controlled. Nicole controlled it. "The centerpieces need to be rotated 15 degrees clockwise," she said, her voice cutting cleanly through the din without rising. "They're blocking the sight line from table 12 to the stage." The decorator nodded and relayed the instruction immediately. "And can someone run the lighting cue sequence again?" Nicole continued, flipping a page on her clipboard. "I want the amber wash to warm the room during speeches, not overpower it." "Yes, Ms. Reynolds." She barely registered the honorific anymore. 5 years ago, she'd been a broke, grieving college dropout scrambling just to survive. Now people listened when she spoke, trusted her judgment, relied on her calm. She'd earned every inch of this authority. She paused near the edge of the ballroom, scanning the space with a practiced eye. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over ivory tablecloths, custom floral arrangements, and sleek branding displays for the international conglomerate hosting the gala. Everything had to be flawless. There was no room for error at this level. Her reflection caught her attention briefly in a mirrored pillar. She barely recognized the woman she saw. Her hair was shorter now, cropped into a shape that framed her face and let her natural coils breathe. Her skin, dark, rich, luminous, glowed softly under the chandeliers. The tailored black dress she wore skimmed her curves without trying to impress anyone. It spoke of quiet confidence, of someone who belonged in rooms like this. There was strength in her posture, stillness, the kind that came from having been broken before and choosing to rebuild anyway. Korea again. She hadn't known how it would feel to be back. She'd expected ghosts around every corner, memories waiting to ambush her. Instead, she felt steady. The past was still there, buried deep, but it no longer controlled her. "Excuse me." Nicole turned. The man approaching her was tall, broad-shouldered, with warm brown hair styled neatly away from his face. His suit was clearly expensive, but worn with ease rather than arrogance. When he smiled, it reached his eyes. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said in flawless English, tinged with a faint accent. "I'm Tae-Won. My company is co-hosting tonight's event. I just wanted to introduce myself and say the space looks incredible." Nicole assessed him quickly, the way she did everyone connected to an event. Professional, polite, not trying to dominate the interaction. She smiled and extended her hand. "Nicole Reynolds, thank you. Your team's been wonderful to work with." When their hands met, there was no lightning strike. No sudden shift in gravity. Just warmth, solid and pleasant. "I have a confession," Tae-Won said, releasing her hand reluctantly. "I've been watching you work all day. The way you manage everything. People, problems, pressure. It's impressive." She chuckled lightly. "It's my job." "It's more than that," he said, not flirtatious, just sincere. "You have this presence. Like you could move mountains if you wanted to." Something in his tone loosened her defenses, just a fraction. "Well," she replied, "tonight I'm just trying to move centerpieces and keep executives happy." He laughed, the sound easy and genuine. "Can I buy you a coffee after this? As a thank you for making our company look so good." Nicole hesitated. Dating wasn't something she avoided entirely, but she'd never let anyone close. Not really. Not since the love that had burned too brightly and left ash in its wake. "Just coffee," Tae-Won added quickly, hands raised in mock surrender. No pressure. Two people who've spent 12 hours in the same ballroom finally talking like humans. She surprised herself by nodding. "Okay," she said. "Just coffee." Coffee became dinner the following week. Dinner became a walk through Namsan Park, city lights glittering below them like scattered stars. Conversation flowed effortlessly. Tae-Won was thoughtful without being intrusive, attentive without prying. He asked about her work, her ambitions, her life, but never pushed where she hesitated. He listened. She found herself laughing more than she expected, relaxing in ways she hadn't realized she'd stopped allowing herself. With him, there was no emotional whiplash, no intensity that demanded everything from her, no fear of being consumed. It was different, quieter, safer. Tae-Won was the heir to his grandmother's textile business, but he wore his privilege lightly. He talked about fabric sourcing and sustainable practices with the same care he used to ask about her mother back home. When he looked at her, she saw admiration, respect, not obsession. 3 months in, he took her to a restaurant perched high above the city. Seoul spread out beneath them, alive and endless. "I know you're going back to the States next week," he said, covering her hand with his. "But I don't want this to end. I'd like to keep seeing you. However we can make it work." Nicole studied him, the sincerity, the patience, the steady warmth. She felt something shift inside her chest. Not love yet, but hope, possibility. "I'd like that too," she said. They made it work. Late-night video calls across time zones. Carefully planned visits. Missed sleep and long airport goodbyes that didn't feel devastating, just temporary. Slow, steady, real. A year later, Tae-Won flew to the States and met her mother. After he left, her mother sat quietly at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped around her tea. "He's a good man," she said softly. "He looks at you like you're precious." Nicole swallowed. "He is." Another year passed. When her company opened a permanent Seoul branch and offered her the position, Nicole didn't hesitate. Returning should have felt like reopening wounds. Instead, with Tae-Won beside her, it felt like stepping into a future unburdened by the past. They moved in together. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Morning coffee rituals, shared grocery lists, quiet nights on the couch. His arm draped around her shoulders as she rested her head against him. He learned her habits, how she needed silence before caffeine, how she spoke to her mother every Sunday without fail, how sometimes she touched the silver infinity bracelet on her wrist and went distant. He noticed, but he didn't ask. Maybe he should have. 2 years into their relationship, Tae-Won knelt on one knee in their apartment, velvet box open in trembling hands. "Nicole Reynolds," he said, voice thick. "You changed my life. You're my best friend, my partner, my home. Will you marry me?" The ring was stunning. She said yes, because he deserved it, because she was happy, because the past was buried. Mostly, half a world away, Tae-Kyung was doing what he did best, conquering. He'd turned pain into ambition, heartbreak into ruthless focus. His rise through the business world was meteoric, calculated risks, relentless work, zero hesitation. He built an empire. Women came and went. None of them stayed. None of them mattered. Until Unipark. She met him at a conference, approached him without hesitation. "You're Tae-Kyung," she said. "Your growth trajectory is impressive. I appreciate that. I'd like to discuss a partnership," she said, handing him her card. "And I'd like to have dinner with you." He was intrigued. Yuna was sharp, controlled, unapologetic. Their relationship was built on mutual ambition and respect, not emotional vulnerability. "I don't share," she told him once. "And I don't forgive disloyalty. I don't do disloyalty." It wasn't love, but it was enough. When his family called him back to Seoul to expand the business, Yuna came with him. "Your cousin Tae-Won keeps messaging," she said casually. "Family dinner soon?" Tae-Kyung agreed. Just dinner. Just family. He had no idea his world was about to detonate. 1 week after Tae-Kyung returned to Seoul, Tae-Won came home from work with an energy Nicole hadn't seen in months. "Guess what?" He dropped his briefcase by the door and pulled her into a hug, lifting her slightly off the ground. Nicole laughed, her arms wrapping around his neck. "What's got you so excited?" "My cousin, Tae-Kyung. Remember I told you about him." Tae-Won set her down but kept his arms around her waist, his eyes bright. "We grew up together, practically brothers. He's been in the States for years building his business. I remember. Nicole had heard stories about the cousin who'd gone abroad. She'd smiled and nodded and never imagined those stories would ever matter to her. He's back. In Seoul. For good. Tae-Won's grin widened. He wants to expand his operations here. We had lunch today and it was like no time had passed at all. God. I've missed him. That's wonderful, Nicole said, genuinely happy to see him this excited. I'm glad you two reconnected. And there's more. Tae-Won grabbed her hands, squeezing them. He has a girlfriend. Yuna. Sounds like she's successful, smart, all that. And I was thinking, grandmother wants to have dinner. All of us. You, me, Tae-Kyung, and Yuna. A proper family gathering. Nicole's stomach fluttered slightly, but she pushed it aside. Just nerves about meeting more family. When? This Saturday. I know it's short notice, but I'm just so excited for you to meet him. Tae-Won pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You two are the most important people in my life. I want you to know each other. I'd love to meet him, Nicole said, and she meant it. How could she not? Tae-Won was practically glowing with happiness. Over the next few days, she heard more stories about how Tae-Kyung and Tae-Won used to sneak out as teenagers, how they'd covered for each other with their parents, how Tae-Kyung had always been the more serious one, the driven one, even as a kid. He had this girlfriend back in college, Tae-Won mentioned one evening while they were cooking dinner together. Never met her, but grandmother said he was crazy about her. Then something happened and they broke up. He never really talked about it. Nicole's hands paused mid-chop. That's sad. Yeah, I think it messed him up for a while. But he threw himself into work and look at him now, billionaire CEO before 30. Tae-Won shook his head admiringly. Always knew he'd do something big. What did he study? Nicole asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Business. International business, I think. Somewhere in Korea for college before he went to the States. Tae-Won tasted the sauce he was making and added more seasoning. Actually, you might have overlapped. Didn't you study in Korea for a bit? Different school, Nicole said quickly. Too quickly. She forced herself to slow down, to breathe normally. And it was only for a year before I had to go back home. Right? When your dad passed. I'm sorry, baby. I shouldn't have brought it up. It's okay. She turned back to chopping vegetables, her hands steady even though her heart was racing for no reason she could name. It was a long time ago. Saturday came faster than Nicole expected. She spent an hour trying on different outfits, wanting to make a good impression on Tae-Won's cousin. She settled on a deep burgundy dress that was elegant without being too formal. Natural makeup, her hair in defined coils that framed her face. You look beautiful, Tae-Won said, coming up behind her as she checked her reflection one final time. His arms wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. But you always do. She leaned back into him, letting his warmth ground her. I'm a little nervous. Don't be. Tae-Kyung's going to love you. How could he not? He kissed her temple. Ready to go? No, she wanted to say. Something in her gut was twisting, warning her. But that was ridiculous. It was just a family dinner. Ready, she said instead. In the car on the way to grandmother's house, Tae-Won couldn't stop talking about his cousin. You're going to love him, Tae-Won said, his arm around Nicole's waist as they walked toward his grandmother's house. My cousin Tae-Kyung. We were close as kids. Haven't seen him in years, but he's back in Seoul now to expand his business. Made a fortune in the States. Nicole smiled up at him, pushing down the weird flutter in her stomach. I'm sure I will. He's bringing his girlfriend too. Yuna. Never met her, but she sounds intense from what he's told me. Tae-Won squeezed her waist affectionately. Family dinner. Nothing too formal. Just good food and catching up. They'd had dozens of family dinners before. This should be no different. The house was warm and welcoming when they entered, filled with the smell of home-cooked food and the sound of laughter from the kitchen. Tae-Won's grandmother greeted them with tight hugs and cheek kisses, fussing over Nicole like she always did. My beautiful granddaughter-in-law, she cooed, patting Nicole's face. Look at you, glowing. Come, come. Help me finish the side dishes. Grandmother, they're guests too, Tae-Won protested. Where's Tae-Kyung? Running late. Traffic from his new office. Should be here any minute. Now shoo. Let me steal your fiancé for a bit. Nicole let herself be pulled into the kitchen, grateful for the distraction. She helped arrange dishes on platters, listening to grandmother's stories about Tae-Won and his cousin as kids, getting into trouble and covering for each other. They were thick as thieves, grandmother laughed. Inseparable. I'm so happy they'll be close again now that Tae-Kyung's back. The doorbell rang. That's them. Tae-Won called from the living room. I'll get it. Nicole's hands stilled on the platter she was arranging. That weird flutter was back, stronger now. Unexplainable. Probably just nerves about meeting more of Tae-Won's family. She heard the door open. Male voices greeting each other with warmth and excitement. A female voice, cool and elegant. Come in, come in. Nicole's in the kitchen with grandmother. Let me introduce you. Let me go surprise her. Another voice said, deep and achingly familiar in a way that made Nicole's blood run cold. Which way is the kitchen? No, it couldn't be. Her heart started hammering against her ribs. Her hands began to shake. The platter trembled in her grip. Through there, Tae-Won said, laughing. She's probably terrorizing grandmother with her perfectionist plating skills. Footsteps approached, getting closer, getting louder. Nicole couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand frozen as a figure appeared in the kitchen doorway. Time stopped. Tae-Kyung stood there, frozen mid-step, his hands still raised like he'd been about to wave hello. His mouth was open to say something cheerful and welcoming. His eyes were warm and unsuspecting. And then they met hers. The world detonated. All the color drained from his face. His hand dropped to his side like someone had cut the strings. His lips parted in shock, in recognition, in something that looked like pain and fury and disbelief all twisted together. Nicole felt the platter slip from her hands. It hit the counter with a clatter that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. No, she whispered. The word barely made it past her lips. Tae-Kyung's eyes dropped to her hand, to the engagement ring sitting there, glinting in the kitchen light. She watched his jaw clench, watched something shatter behind his eyes. Ah, you two have met already. Tae-Won's voice boomed cheerfully as he entered the kitchen, completely oblivious. His arm slid around Nicole's waist, pulling her against his side. Babe, this is my cousin Tae-Kyung. Tae-Kyung, this is my fiancé, Nicole. The one I've been telling you about. The silence that followed was suffocating. Nicole couldn't look away from Tae-Kyung, couldn't speak, couldn't think. 7 years vanished in an instant. He looked different, older, sharper. His black hair was still perfectly disheveled. But there were new tattoos now, intricate patterns that disappeared beneath the collar of his shirt and traveled down his neck. His jaw was harder, his build broader, more defined, like he'd spent years sculpting away softness. The boy she'd loved was gone, replaced by a man who looked like he'd walked through fire and come out forged in steel. But his eyes, God, his eyes were exactly the same. And right now they were burning into her with an intensity that made her knees weak. She saw the recognition slam into him like a freight train, saw the color drain from his face, saw his entire body go rigid, his hand freezing midair where he'd been about to wave hello. For 3 heartbeats, they just stared at each other. The air between them crackled with 7 years of unspoken words, unresolved pain, and feelings that had never really died. Then something shifted in his expression. A decision made in a split second. His face smoothed over. The shock disappeared behind a mask of polite neutrality. When he spoke, his voice was perfectly controlled, perfectly pleasant, perfectly fake. You must be Nicole. He extended his hand like they were strangers meeting for the first time. I've heard so much about you from Tae-Won. It's nice to finally meet you. Nicole's heart stuttered. He was pretending. He was actually pretending they'd never met. She understood instantly. This was a lifeline, a way out, a chance to not detonate both their lives right here in his grandmother's kitchen. She forced her hand to reach out and take his, forced her lips into a smile that felt like it might crack her face in half. Nice to meet you too. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Tae-Won's told me so much about you. Their hands touched, and electricity shot up her arm. 7 years collapsed into nothing. She was 21 again, holding his hand in that library, feeling her entire world shift. His fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around hers before he released her. Something flickered in his eyes, pain, longing, regret, before it disappeared behind that pleasant mask again. And this, another voice cut in, smooth and cool, must be the famous event planner. A woman appeared in the doorway, and Nicole's stomach dropped. Yuna Park was stunning in a way that was almost aggressive. Sleek black hair fell like silk down her back. Razor-sharp cheekbones. A designer dress that screamed money and power. But it was her eyes that really struck Nicole. Intelligent, assessing, with an edge that said she didn't miss anything. Yuna's hand slid possessively onto Tae-Kyung's arm, her body pressing close to his side in a clear statement of ownership. I'm Yuna. She extended her free hand to Nicole, her smile polite but with something calculating underneath. Tae-Kyung's girlfriend. Nicole. She shook Yuna's hand, feeling like she was being evaluated and measured in real time. It's nice to meet you. Likewise. Yuna's eyes swept over Nicole, taking in every detail. Tae-Won talks about you constantly. The brilliant event planner who swept him off his feet. Hardly, Nicole said with a forced laugh. If anything, he swept me off mine. Tae-Won beamed, pulling Nicole closer against his side. She's being modest. You should see her work. She's incredible. Nicole felt Tae-Kyung's eyes on her but didn't look at him. Couldn't look at him. Well, isn't this perfect? Grandmother appeared behind Yuna, clapping her hands together with delight. My grandsons and their beautiful women, all together finally. Come, dinner is ready. Let's eat before everything gets cold. The meal that followed was an exercise in torture. Nicole sat across from Tae-Kyung at the dining table, Tae-Won on her right, Yuna on Tae-Kyung's left. The pretense they'd started in the kitchen continued, but underneath the surface, currents of unspoken emotion threatened to drag them both under. Every accidental glance felt dangerous. Every word had to be carefully measured. They were acting like strangers, but their bodies remembered what their mouths refused to acknowledge. So Nicole, grandmother said warmly, passing a dish of kimchi. How are the wedding plans coming? Have you set a date yet? Nicole's throat felt like it was closing. She felt Tae-Kyung's eyes on her but kept her gaze on her plate. We're thinking next spring. Nothing too big. Just something intimate. Spring weddings are beautiful, Yuna commented, her manicured fingers resting on Tae-Kyung's forearm. The gesture was casual, possessive, a clear marking of territory. Though I personally prefer fall. More dramatic. Don't you think, babe? Tae-Kyung's attention snapped back to Yuna like he'd forgotten she was there. Yeah. Fall's nice. Yuna's eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile didn't waver. You seem distracted. Just jet lag, he said smoothly, still adjusting to the time difference. How long have you two been together? Tae-Won asked, trying to include everyone in the conversation. His hand found Nicole's under the table, squeezing gently. 8 months, Yuna answered with confidence. Not as long as you two, but when you know, right? Tae-Kyung. Right? He echoed. But Nicole heard the hollowness in his voice. And how did you meet? Nicole asked, immediately regretting the question. She didn't want to know. Didn't want to picture them together. Business conference in New York, Yuna said, her smile sharpening. I approached him directly. I don't believe in playing games or waiting around for what I want. I saw something worth having, and I went for it. The message was clear. Yuna Park didn't share. That's bold, Tae-Won said admiringly. I like that. Nicole's the same way. Strong. Knows what she wants. If only he knew how untrue that was right now. Nicole had no idea what she wanted. Her entire world had been thrown into chaos the moment Tae-Kyung walked through that door. How did you two meet? Tae-Kyung asked suddenly, his voice carefully neutral. But when Nicole finally met his eyes, she saw the question burning behind them. How did you end up with my cousin? At an event Nicole planned, Tae-Won answered, his voice full of warmth. He squeezed her hand again. Corporate gala for my company. I took one look at her and knew I was in trouble. Love at first sight? Yuna asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Not quite, Nicole said quietly. It took time. We built something slowly. Unlike us, she didn't say. Unlike the way we combusted into each other like wildfire. Slow and steady, Tae-Won agreed. That's how you build something that lasts. The irony wasn't lost on Nicole. She and Tae-Kyung had burned bright and fast, and look where that had gotten them. Maybe slow and steady was the answer after all. But then why did her heart still race every time Tae-Kyung looked at her? More wine, grandmother offered, oblivious to the tension crackling around the table. Please, Nicole and Tae-Kyung said simultaneously. Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them, recognition of the absurdity, of the pain, of the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. Tae-Kyung looked away first, reaching for his glass with a hand that wasn't quite steady. The dinner crawled on. Small talk about business, about Seoul's growth, about the weather. Safe topics. Surface-level conversation. Nothing real. Nothing true. But beneath the table, Nicole's leg bounced anxiously. Her hands trembled slightly when she lifted her fork. Her pulse hammered in her throat. And across from her, Tae-Kyung's jaw was tight, his shoulders tense, his eyes dark with something she recognized, the same barely controlled chaos she felt threatening to tear her apart from the inside. You're so quiet tonight, cousin, Tae-Won observed, looking at Tae-Kyung with concern. Everything okay? Fine, just taking everything in. Tae-Kyung manufactured a smile. It's been a long time since I've been back in Seoul. Lot of changes. Well, you're home now, grandmother said happily. And you have family here, including your beautiful Yuna. And soon Nicole will be family too. She beamed at Nicole. I'm so happy my grandsons found such wonderful women. Guilt twisted in Nicole's stomach like a knife. She forced a smile. Thank you. That means a lot. After what felt like an eternity, dinner finally ended. Nicole helped grandmother clear dishes, grateful for the excuse to escape to the kitchen. She was rinsing plates when she felt him behind her. Didn't need to turn around to know it was Tae-Kyung. Her entire body recognized his presence like a tuning fork responding to its perfect pitch. We can't keep doing this, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Doing what? She didn't turn around. We're not doing anything. Pretending. Acting like we're strangers. We are strangers. Her hands gripped the edge of the sink. We were different people 7 years ago. That version of us doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't it? He moved closer. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Because it sure as hell feels like it exists to me. Tae-Kyung. I looked for you. The words came out raw. For months. I thought you'd just left me without a word. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Nicole's eyes closed. I tried to find you too. You were already gone. And now we're here. Both of us with other people. Both of us pretending we don't feel anything. What else can we do? She finally turned to face him, and immediately regretted it. He was too close. Too real. Too much like coming home. You want me to blow up both our lives? Hurt two people who don't deserve it? No. His hands clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from touching her. But I also can't stand here and act like you're just my cousin's fiancé. Like you're nothing to me. I have to be nothing to you. A tear slipped down her cheek. We both have to be nothing to each other. It's the only way this works. And if I can't do that, then we're both in trouble. Footsteps approached. They sprang apart like teenagers caught kissing, putting distance between them just as Yuna appeared in the doorway. Her eyes swept over them, sharp and assessing. There you are. I wondered where you'd disappeared to. She looked at Nicole. Everything all right? Fine, Nicole said quickly. Just chatting while I helped with dishes. How domestic. Yuna's smile was pleasant, but her eyes were ice. She moved to Tae-Kyung's side, her arms sliding through his. We should probably head out, babe. You said you have an early meeting tomorrow, right? Yeah. Tae-Kyung let himself be pulled away, but his eyes found Nicole's one last time. A silent plea, a question, a goodbye. She looked away. In the living room, they went through the motions of farewells. Promises to do this again soon. Hugs and polite words and manufactured smiles. When Tae-Kyung shook her hand goodbye, his fingers lingered for just a second too long. It was nice meeting you, Nicole. You too, she managed to say around the lump in her throat. Yuna's eyes tracked the interaction like a hawk watching prey. In the car ride home, Tae-Won kept glancing at her with concern. You're quiet. Did something happen at dinner? No, nothing happened. The lie tasted like ash. I'm just tired. My cousin's nice, right? Tae-Kyung? I'm glad you two got along. Nicole's hands twisted in her lap. Yeah, he seems great. I'm so happy he's back. Tae-Won reached over and squeezed her knee. Having family close again. And now that you've met him, we can all hang out more. The four of us. The thought made her want to scream. That sounds nice, she heard herself say. That night, lying in bed next to Tae-Won as he slept peacefully, Nicole stared at the ceiling and felt the walls closing in. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She shouldn't look. Should delete it without reading. Should pretend it never arrived. But her fingers were already reaching for the phone, already opening the message. We need to talk. Not tonight. Not soon. But eventually we need to talk. Because I can't keep pretending, and I don't think you can either. Nicole stared at the words until they blurred. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Instead, she found herself typing back. We can't. This is already too complicated. His response came immediately. I know, but that doesn't change the fact that seeing you again broke something open in me that I thought I'd sealed shut 7 years ago. Fresh tears slipped down her cheeks. She typed quickly before she could stop herself. Me too. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then what do we do? Nicole stared at the question for a long time. Finally, she typed, nothing. We do nothing. We had our chance and life took it away. Now we have different lives. Different people. We can't go back. And if I don't want to go back? If I want to go forward, with you? Her breath caught. Her hands shook so hard she almost dropped the phone. You have Yuna. I'm engaged to your cousin. There is no forward for us. A long pause. Then, you're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have messaged you. Good night, Nicole. Good night. She deleted the conversation thread and set the phone down with shaking hands. Beside her, Tae-Won shifted in his sleep, his arm draping over her waist, pulling her close. She felt his breath warm against her neck, steady and trusting and completely unaware that the woman he loved was breaking apart. Love you, he mumbled in his sleep. Nicole closed her eyes and felt a tear slip down her temple. I'm sorry, she whispered to the darkness, to Tae-Won, to Tae-Kyung, to herself. I'm so sorry. Across the city, Tae-Kyung sat on the edge of his bed, his phone clutched in his hand, staring at the deleted conversation like he could will the words back into existence. Nicole thought that would be the end of it. One dinner, one night of pretending. Then they'd all go back to their separate lives and the pretense would become reality. Time would dull the sharp edges of seeing him again. The shock would fade. Everything would go back to normal. She had no idea how wrong she was. She didn't know that Yuna Park was already suspicious, her sharp mind piecing together the tension she'd witnessed at that dinner table. Didn't know that those calculating eyes had seen every lingering glance, every moment of hesitation, every crack in the facade. She didn't know that the careful life she'd built, the stability, the safety, the promise of a future with a good man, was standing on foundations made of sand. And that one strong wave was all it would take to wash it all away. Nicole Reynolds thought she could keep pretending. She thought she could keep both her heart and her promises intact. She thought she could have it all under control. But storms don't ask for permission before they destroy everything in their path. And the storm that was coming? It had been building for 7 years. It was only a matter of time before it made landfall. Hey, Seoul lovers. If you made it this far, you're invested, and I love that for us. This is just the beginning of Nicole, Tae-Kyung, and Tae-Won's story, and trust me when I say part 2 is going to blow your mind. We're talking about secrets unraveling, emotions exploding, and decisions that will change everything. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss when part 2 drops. I promise you don't want to be late to this party. Drop a comment and let me know, what country are you watching from and what time is it where you are right now? I love seeing where in the world you all are. And tell me, Team Tae-Won or Team Tae-Kyung? Who do you think Nicole should choose? Let's talk about it in the comments. See you in part 2.